What if I told you that the entire magic system of not just one fantasy world, but an entire universe spanning dozens of planets began with 17 people murdering a god, and that the shattered remains of that deity became 16 competing gods, each one bound to a fundamental concept like ruin, preservation, or odium? Hi, my name is Jason Hamilton. I'm a fantasy author who's built my own shared universe connecting world mythologies in my Argovale series, so I have a deep appreciation for the intricate world building that goes into interconnected fantasy systems. And Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere might be the most ambitious connected universe in modern fantasy literature, and one of my personal favorites. Today, we're diving into the Cosmere. We're going to talk about what it is, how it works, and why understanding the underlying mechanics of this universe will completely transform how you read every single one of Sanderson's books. We're talking Realmatic theory, Investiture, world hopping, and cosmic scale conflicts that connect Mistborn, the Stormlight Archive, Warbreaker, and a dozen other works into one coherent whole. The story of the Cosmere doesn't start with a big bang, at least not in the same sense as our universe, but with a betrayal. Long ago on a world called Yolen, there was a power that created the universe. It's called Adonalsium. We don't know if it was a thinking being or just a force of nature at this point because Sanderson hasn't gotten into that, but it was for all intents and purposes God. And a group of at least 17 mortals decided to kill it for reasons unknown. In an event known as the Shattering, they succeeded. But you can't just destroy the power of creation. It doesn't just disappear, it fractures. Adonalsium broke into 16 distinct pieces, each one representing a core aspect of its original nature. 16 of the conspirators then took up these pieces of divine power, becoming the new gods of the Cosmere. They're called the Shards of Adonalsium. This single event set the stage for everything that followed. Every magic system, every conflict, every godlike being in Sanderson's books stems from this act of deicide. It's the hidden backstory that connects them all. But this new pantheon of gods and the planets they settled on don't exist in a simple physical universe. They're all part of a much more complex, three-layered reality. And to understand anything about magic or gods in the Cosmere, you first have to understand Realmatic theory. Everything, every person, planet, and speck of dust exists in three interconnected dimensions at once. We have the physical, the cognitive, and the spiritual. The physical realm is easy. It's the world we see and touch, a star cluster of about 50 to 100 stars where the laws of physics generally apply. This is where the main action of all of the books takes place. The cognitive realm, known on some worlds as Shadesmar, is the realm of thought. It's shaped by the perceptions and ideas of sentient beings. On Roshar, it's a sea of black spheres. On Scadrial, it's made of mist. What's more bizarre is that land and sea are inverted. Oceans in the physical realm are solid ground, and the cognitive and solid land is a dangerous, unstable territory. Most importantly, the vast emptiness of outer space is compressed because people don't spend much time thinking about it. This detail has enormous consequences. Finally, there's the spiritual realm. Now, this isn't a place so much as a dimension of pure concepts. It's where the ideal form of everything exists. It's soul or spirit web, which is like a form of spiritual DNA. This realm contains an object's perfect self, its identity, and its connections to everything else in the universe. Almost all magical healing works by using energy to pull your physical self closer to the ideal version of you that exists in the spiritual realm. The interplay between these three realms is the engine that drives all magic in the Cosmere. But to make that engine run, you need fuel. And that's where we get the concept of Investiture. It's the raw, magical energy of the Cosmere, a fundamental force of the universe alongside mass and energy. When Adonalsium was shattered, all of its investiture was divided evenly among the 16 shards. This means every bit of magic in the universe is flavored by one of these 16 divine concepts. This is why magic looks so different from world to world. On Roshar, the shards of honor and cultivation invested the planet, and their power manifests as stormlight, a sort of gaseous, glowing energy that powers surge binding. On Scadrial, the powers of preservation and ruin created the metallic arts, where people swallow metals to gain power. On Nalthis, the shard endowment created a magic based on breath and color. They're all different expressions of the same fundamental energy, just filtered through the lens of a different shard. Even more fascinating Investiture can take on a solid, liquid, or gaseous form. When it becomes solid for reasons not fully understood, it always manifests as a metal. On Scadrial, this resulted in the god metals Atium and Lerasium. On Roshar, the solid form of Investiture is the gems that hold Stormlight. And just like matter has antimatter, Investiture has a counterpart, anti-Investiture. When the two meet, they annihilate each other in a massive explosion, capable of permanently destroying even a god or a soul. By the way, I don't use sponsors or run ads on these videos because we're completely self-funded, but I do have one thing I think you might like, especially if you like Sanderson, and it's my Fantasy All Access library. It's where you can get every fantasy book that I and my team have written, all set in this huge shared universe where every mythology from history coexists together. It's up there on the level of ambition with Sanderson's novels. I think you'll really dig it, and it's how I keep this channel going, so feel free to check the link in the description if you're interested. Now let's get back to those 16 new gods. When the mortals took up the Shards, they gained near infinite power, but there was a catch they might not have anticipated. The Shards have an intent, a driving purpose that is so powerful it slowly warps the mind of the person holding it, known as the vessel. A kind and generous man named Ati took up the Shard of Ruin. Over thousands of years, the Shard's all-consuming desire for destruction eroded his personality until he became a force of pure entropy, seeking the end of all things. His counterpart was named Laris, and he held the Shard of Preservation. He became so consumed by his intent that he was incapable of causing harm, even if it was necessary to preserve something else in the long run. These shards include well-known ones like Ruin and Preservation on Scadrial, Honor, Cultivation, and the Malevolent Odium on Roshar, and Endowment on Nalthis. Others like Autonomy, Ambition, Devotion, and Dominion have played their own parts in cosmic history, often with catastrophic results. When shards clash, planets can be destroyed. When a vessel is killed, their power doesn't just vanish, it splinters, leaving behind a kind of residual, often dangerous divine energy that can power magic for millennia, as seen on the planet Sel, which is home to Elantris. This cosmic drama of warring gods, each trapped by their own nature, is the hidden war being fought in the background of all of Sanderson's books. But it's not just the gods who are on the move. Mortals have found a way to traverse the void between stars. World hopping and the grand conspiracy. With gods and magic spread across dozens of planets, you have to wonder, can people travel between them? The answer is yes, and it's one of the coolest parts of the Cosmere. They're called world hoppers. World hoppers use the strange geography of the cognitive realm to travel. Remember how the empty space between planets is compressed in the cognitive realm? Well, travelers can enter that realm through a perpendicularity, a stable rift between the realms, usually created by the immense concentration of a shard's power on a planet. Once inside, they can literally walk from one world to the next in a matter of weeks or months. The most famous and mysterious world hopper is a man named Hoyt. He appears in every single Cosmere novel thereabouts, as well as a lot of novellas and short stories, often in disguise. He's ancient, knows more about the universe than almost anyone, and is collecting different forms of magic from across the Cosmere for some unknown purpose. He is the main connecting thread, a walking, talking clue that there is a much bigger story at play. But Hoyt actually isn't alone. There are entire organizations operating between worlds. We have one called the 17th Shard, which is a group trying to hunt Hoyt down. The Ghostbloods are a shadowy organization with spies on multiple planets, seeking to control Investiture and gain power on a cosmic scale. These groups are engaged in a sort of secret interplanetary Cold War, and their agents are hiding in plain sight in almost every book. So why did Brandon Sanderson build all of this? Why create such a complex hidden universe? It was actually a brilliant solution to a problem he faced earlier in his career. He wanted to write a massive interconnected epic like The Wheel of Time, but as an unpublished author, he couldn't risk pitching a 10-book series that might get rejected after the first book. So he came up with a plan: write a series of seemingly standalone novels that were secretly connected. This allowed him to sell individual books like Elantris and Mistborn on their own merits, but for him and for observant readers, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle. His full plan for the Cosmere is a sequence of over 35 novels, which is broken into several core series and standalone stories. We have the Mistborn saga, which is planned to span 4 eras, taking the world of Scadrial from a medieval fantasy setting to a futuristic space opera. And there's the Stormlight Archive, which is a central epic dealing directly with the conflicts between Shards, and the Dragonsteel series, which will eventually tell the story of the Shattering itself, but we don't really have that yet. The most common question people ask is, where do I start? And the genius of Sanderson's design is that it doesn't really matter. He's been very clear that you don't need to know any of this background lore to read and understand or enjoy the books. Each series is designed to stand on its own. You can start with Mistborn, The Final Empire, that's my personal favorite, for a tight, action-packed heist story. You can start with The Way of Kings if you want a sprawling, epic fantasy. You can start with Warbreaker for a story about politics, romance, and magic based on color. And The Discovery of the Cosmere is a reward, an extra layer of depth for readers who choose to look for it. It turns rereading the books into a treasure hunt, where a random side character you barely noticed on a first read is suddenly revealed to be an ancient immortal being from another world. I should also ask, The Emperor's Soul is another really great entry point into the world if you want to know where to start. It's a standalone novella that's actually really well written. If you love diving this deep into the lore and mechanics of fantasy worlds, then I think you'd be a perfect fit for our community. It's called the Fantasy All Access Library, and it's a group on a platform called School, where we go even deeper on topics like this. As a member, you get my entire library of fantasy novels and audiobooks with at least one new book released every single month. You also get access to weekly live calls with me where we break down world building, magic systems, and writing craft. It's a community of very passionate fantasy fans, and it's how we fund everything we do here on the channel. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, the link will be in the description below, and we'd love to have you.